All right. Well, greetings and salutations to everybody out there in YouTube land. I'm your host once again, Dan Thornton. I want to thank you for taking a little bit of time on your day, midday, Monday, Martin Luther King Day. If you're watching this live or maybe on the same day of the recording, hey, obviously Lions fans were all riding super high after the last night's huge win, playoff win, first win in the playoffs in 32 years, first playoff home win in forever, et cetera, et cetera. But now that we've gotten that out of the way, and before we even find out who we're going to play next weekend in the divisional round of the NFC playoffs, I want to take a bit of a moment of time because I think at this point, both teams, whether you're a Rams fan or a Lions fan, can sit back and assess where these teams, and this particular trade that involved both teams' iconic quarterbacks ultimately took both teams. Who won? Who lost? Was it a push? All that stuff. And I'm going to just tell you things from my point of view. So take that with a grain of salt. This is just my point of view. But here's what I think ultimately went down. As we know, Lions fans, when Brad Holmes took over MCDC, the Detroit Lions franchise was perhaps the worst team, the worst franchise in the entire NFL, without exemption. Hadn't had a playoff game in a billion years, had a winning season forever, hadn't been in the playoffs in forever. Whatever it may be, we just know this. Brad Holmes, as any GM would, has to overlook the franchise, overlook his assets, his weaknesses, his debts. He looks at the books and sees that the Lions are roughly $28 million in dead cap money at that point. He sees that he's not really going to have any financial freedom to be able to go out and sign some players to help revitalize a downtrodden franchise left in rumbles basically by Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn. This franchise at that point is got nothing really going for him. He's looking over things, trying to prepare with his scouts, getting ready for the upcoming draft. And what happens? He is now aging, a little bit beat up quarterback. Matt Stafford comes in and says, hey, no mas. I can't go through another rebuild. No offense to anybody. Stafford, great guy, says, I just need a new, fresh start. It is at this point, I think Brad Holmes realizes he's got to try to do something to get value, unlike prior regimes with, star players in Detroit. He's got to try to get something out of nothing. So what happens is we all know Matt Stafford magically lands in Cabo and in a hot tub, as you can't make this up, in a hot tub with Sean McVay discussing the future of both franchises. McVay, as we all know, a younger coordinator at that point / head coach, believes in himself to the T, but thinks, hey, we just went to the Super Bowl, but I don't think I can win it all with this young 23, 24-year-old quarterback that I have in Jared Goff. While the kid has some promise, I believe he has some limitations and is limiting my offense. So what happens from there? A plan is formed. Both McVay and Stafford say, hey, maybe this would be a great relationship and both of us can get something out of this. Brad Holmes understands this. He hears Stafford come in and talk about his tale of woe, how he needs out of town. This franchise is going nowhere. I'm giving up on the Fords, the city of Detroit, etc. Brad Holmes sees that there is an emotional investment by both Sean McVay and Matt Stafford. And this is where I think the crux of this story in this video needs to really be addressed. Brad Holmes needs to not just get the MVP for this season, but maybe for the NFL general manager of the decade. Because what he does, he leads Sean McVay to make an emotional decision, not a logic-based decision. What do I mean by that? Anybody who's ever been involved in sales or been a general manager or a head coach of a professional franchise, or I guess you could even counter and say maybe a collegiate program, knows when people make emotional decisions, they make irrational decisions. McVay understands the Lions are going to have a number of suitors for their strong-armed, 31-year-old quarterback, I believe he was at that point, but a quarterback who had already begun to show signs of wear, duress on his body, number of back injuries, shoulder injuries, etc. Brad Holmes understands that he's got to try to get McVay to give maximum value for his prized possession, which is Matt Stafford. So he makes a number of calls to other teams. Let's remember Washington, among other teams like Carolina Panthers and a few others, made overtures to the Detroit Lions to pursue Matthew Stafford and acquire his services. It sounds like the leading price for most of these franchises is going to be a first-round pick, some of them as high as a top 10 pick. Brad Holmes feels he can get more from him, so he talks to McVay and says, hey, I just left LA. I get you. Let's do each other a favor. I can get you Matt Stafford, but I'm going to lead a little bit more than just a number one overall pick. So what happens? McVay scratches his shoulders and his chin and starts thinking, what can I do to try to secure this Super Bowl? His team, as we all know, just to reiterate, had just been to the Super Bowl 2 years prior. A lot of these guys in their prime. You got Cooper Kupp, you got Aaron Donald, among a calamity of other riches on this team. You got Jalen Ramsey, a future Pro Bowler. And again, you've got players all across this board. But he isn't fully sure that he can make it to the Super Bowl and win it. So he says, you know what? I've got to go all in to get Matt Stafford. What does he do? He gives up not only a second first-round pick, but he gives up some ancillary picks. And here's the coup de grace from Brad Holmes' standpoint. Brad Holmes, as we all know, was tied to Jared Goff before Sean McVay was ever hired as the head coach of the LA Rams. Brad Holmes was among the scouting department that brought in and traded up to the number one pick from number 12 to number 1 for the Los Angeles Rams to acquire the services, or the rights, I should say, to draft Jared Goff with the number 1 overall pick. He's seen his potential. He believes McVay is underutilizing this quarterback and, more importantly, undervaluing. So a trade is struck, and without revising all of history or diving into it and boring you guys to death, let's look at what all the Rams gave up and ultimately the Lions gained by trading or making this one particular trade. The Lions, all right, we got Jared Goff. We got ultimately what ended up being Jamison Williams. They also then get Ife Melifonwu. So right there alone, you get a quarterback of equivalent talent. Now you get a speedster wide receiver, and you now get one of the most impactful safeties on the Detroit Lions roster. On top of that, you get players such as Jamari Gibbs, who some could say is one of the better young running backs in all the NFL. You also get Sam Laporta, a generational tight end, perhaps the greatest rookie tight end, not named Mike Ditka, the entire history of the NFL has ever seen. You also get a developmental defensive tackle named Broderick Martin, who we haven't seen one way or the other. Is he going to be something or not? We'll probably have to wait to next year to see. But from all this wheeling and dealing, Brad Holmes is now changed the culture in Detroit. He's put a number of players on the field to help the Detroit Lions achieve the ultimate goal, and that is become a winning franchise, one that could contend, and as we all now know, won their division. And on top of that, break the final remains of the same old Lions, or the Bobby Lane curse, that the Detroit Lions are now a relevant franchise. All right, you've heard my bit. You've heard my talk. I do believe that Brad Holmes pulled a fast one over him. Why? You gave up a 32-year-old quarterback who, yes, has a heck of an arm and, yes, is still playing, but one who's starting to show some signs of, man, the body can only take so much of beating, which he did in Detroit. He's added to those beatings in L.A., and you know what? Outside of one season in L.A. where the L.A. Rams, take this as you may, the L.A. Rams started seeing Matt Stafford throw enough pick sixes in that Super Bowl year before they even made the playoffs. Well, they said, you know what little draft capital we have left, we've got to go out and get Von Miller, another future Hall of Fame defensive player, because I do believe Sean McVay in the front office in L.A. wasn't fully convinced at that point that the L.A. Rams could end up making the playoffs, let alone winning the Super Bowl. Let's not forget, Detroit Lions fans have seen that scenario way too often, where Matt Stafford had the game on the line and didn't always come up on the right side of the scoreboard, something we saw again last night. All right, you've heard my thoughts. You heard my take. What do you think of the trade? And now it's a couple years in review. You've been able to see it one way or another. What we can say is this. Matt Stafford has won a Super Bowl. That, I think, is a clear plus for the L.A. Rams. But what we can also say is, where would the L.A. Rams be today if they maintain those draft picks? Where would the Detroit Lions be? Would the Rams have won the Super Bowl with Jared Goff, since they did acquire Von Miller on top of, like I said, Jalen Ramsey and other defensive players? That's something ultimately we'll never know. We can only speculate, but here's what I can tell you. Outside of that one season in LA, Matt Stafford has yet to win a playoff game in any other season. All right, let's real quick go to some of the comments in the section, see what you guys think. T-Born, second show. Yeah, just thought I'd hop on real quick. I had a little bit of a lunch break, and I thought, you know what? Why not revisit the Matt Stafford for Jared Goff trade? I'm going to say this. I think Brad Holmes pulled a fast one like I put in the thumbnail, and you know what? He has forever changed the Detroit Lions franchise and did it in less than 3 years. A big part of that was this trade. All right, Dallas, to the winners go the spoils. I'll go with that. Troy, bring on whoever next weekend. We are going to the NFC Championship. I stand by that, and I think you are correct. Dave, Holmes should be GM of the year. I think he might be. Brittany, Super Bowl or bust? I'll go with that. Zach, any injuries from yesterday? Houston back next week? Not that I'm aware of. Trade, preach, coach. Okay. Pierce, woo! I could probably fit one of those in right now, as long as I don't do too many. Pipe, what a glorious day it is. It really is, if you're a Lions fan. 9 drinks, do it. Just do it. I like it. Just go in. Hey, buddy, go Lions. What timeline are we living in? This is absolutely beautiful. You know what? You're not wrong. And I'm going to throw this because it correlates with this video. If Jared Goff goes out and wins next weekend and gets the Lions to the NFC Championship, let's just, for the sake of this video, speculate and say the Lions win and get into the Super Bowl. Where do you now rank Jared Goff, somebody who took 2 separate franchises to the Super Bowl? Where do you rank Matt Stafford, a guy who could not do any of this in Detroit? 1 year with a number of Hall of Famers around him, got him to the Super Bowl, won it, hasn't done anything since. How much time does Stafford have left in his tank? I guess we'll find out that in this offseason. All right, Brent, 64, and it's sinking in. Finally, a playoff victory Monday. Woo! Manifest Stafford was salty when asked if he was happy for the Detroit fans. He said he was happy for the players. Hearing the city chant for Jared and never heard his name while in Detroit bothered him. You know what? Stafford wanted out of Detroit. Wish him all well, but let's also review the facts. Here in Detroit in 12 seasons, 0 division titles, 0 12-win seasons, 0 playoff wins at Ford Field, 0 playoff wins, period. That's a whole lot of zeros. Now, take out the one season when they won the Super Bowl in LA. Has he won any 13-win seasons, 12-win seasons? Has he won a playoff game? You're starting to see some similarities. All right, Miles, all Lions fans diving in, staring in, okay. Big M, something that hasn't been discussed enough was the decision DC made to take the holding call late in the 4th that moved the Rams out of field goal range and ultimately won the game for the Lions. You're not wrong. It was a huge brass stones, cojones, whatever you want to say, move by MCDC and give them credit for it because, yeah, if you decline the penalty, they've got an opportunity at the kick. Who knows if they would have made it, but yes, I get your point there. Our Holmes got picks and a former number 1 pick. Great job. When you look at the accumulation, and you know it's way too early to see who's going to make the Hall of Fame or anything like that, but I think at this point it's fair to say Goff, especially if he gets the Lions to the Super Bowl, he might end up being somebody they consider, maybe not first ballot, not first year or anything, but maybe 10 years from now or 10 years after he retires, he could be in the conversation for the gold jacket. Could Sam Laporta, if he continues his trend for, the next 5 years or so, could he be a gold jacket consideration? Absolutely. And from there, even if they're not all Hall of Famers, we can probably say that at some level, some of these guys might end up being near Pro Bowl level. How much different would the LA Rams look? And again, I'll pose the question. Would the LA Rams have won the Super Bowl if they maintained Jared Goff? We'll never know, but it's something to speculate on for sure. On a Monday, we're waiting to find out who we play next week. Trump, woo! Southwest, one of the criticisms against Goff is that the team has to play perfectly around him. The Lions didn't play perfectly around him last night. You are correct. Sacked 3 times, only 79 yards rushing. Net Goff yet played well. Yes, he did play very well. I'd say one moment where he did the chest pass, basketball pass. What do you want to say to Brock Wright? Other than that, I thought he played pretty dang right. Brent, flexing future is looking bright. All roads go through Detroit. You're not wrong there. Brother Ken, Coach Dan, I believe Brad Holmes knew McVay had some contempt for Goff's abilities, and Brad played him like a. Yeah, I would agree. I think, and that's what I tried to allude to, Ken, with kind of breaking things down. I do believe he understood, like you're already saying, McVay had some sort of emotional duress, stress. What do you want to say for Goff? I believe it's just my guess. I believe McVay didn't realize not all the blame was on Goff, where McVay was probably trying to put it all on Goff, saying, nah, it couldn't be me. It couldn't be some of these play calls I'm making. It couldn't be that I've got to do more with this or that or more with my schemes. It's got to be that guy. And that's the problem. But that problem also meant Brad Holmes was probably aware of it. And like you were pointing out, and I'm pointing out in the thumbnail in this video, used it to Detroit's advantage. Trump's genius. What do you got? Stafford was knocked silly and should have never been back on the field. I would agree with that. The more I watch that review, the more I would have a real conversation if I'm the NFL with the non-team physician who cleared Stafford to get out there. Well said, Southwest. Yeah, agreed. Southwest, love what Goff said after the game. Gratitude and appreciation to the fans supporting him. Yeah, and man, if you didn't see it last night and you get an opportunity today, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. Go back and check out just the Detroit Lions or Ford Field cheering him on before the game. That was impressive. And I got to imagine that will resonate with Goff big time, not just now, but contract time and in the future. I think Washington for not trading for them. Yeah, that's probably the reason the Lions didn't get swept. Yeah, I think Washington for not trading. Yeah, agreed. I do believe in regards to Sweat. I just think we got outpriced. I think the Bears, when they went to the second round pick, the only way Detroit was going to leapfrog them was give a first, and they weren't willing to do that. Although at this point, the difference might be a little less minimal than it would have been, obviously a month or a couple months ago. Big M, what an incredible week of football for the state of Michigan. Michigan wins the Natty. Detroit got their first playoff win in 32 years. Lions winning it all this year. Let's go, 100%. R, not trading Stafford to Washington is probably the reason we didn't get swept this year. I get what you're saying with that, and you are probably correct. I think that would have been, I'm trying to remember a few years ago, but either that or was it the Carolina one would probably been the next best deal to LA's. Oh, Pierce, we host the Rams. We host the Rams in the trade. Yeah. And while everybody's going to say, hey, the Rams won the Super Bowl, I really do think if you look back at that team wasn't the team that Goff took to the Super Bowl. That defense was so much more stacked. It's when you calculate in the fact that you've got Von Miller on top of Jalen Ramsey, on top of Aaron Donald, and a multitude of other players, I do believe the Rams would have had a chance to win it, Stafford or Goff. But hey, I'm glad that we got Goff. All right, Brent, Brad has our team set up pretty good for years to come. Yes, agreed. Brother Ken, if the Lions can just win one Super Bowl, it could be the equivalent of what Jimmy Johnson did for the Cowboys. You're not wrong, and that's a great comparison. For those of you who maybe aren't old enough to remember, there's your homework assignment of the day. Go look at what Jimmy Johnson did to the Cowboys when he first took over, some of the moves they had to make, and you know what? It paid dividends for about a decade. Big M, Brad Holmes turned the franchise around with that trade. You are correct. It might not have been quite the same as the Herschel Walker trade, but you know what? It's a good comparison. Joseph, what do you got? The trade is even as of now. The Lions, if the Lions win the Super Bowl, they win the trade. I'll go with that. That's a fair assessment, man. Southwest, there's no rest when it comes to building a roster in the NFL. You are correct. Hopefully they can get a legit number one cornerback and refortify the offensive line. Yeah, I think that would be the point. Adding some more depth to the offensive line, like you're saying, beef up that secondary. Don, woo! There you go. Brother Ken, McVay really had contempt or lack of respect for Goff after the Super Bowl loss. Why? I'll have to do my research. I believe it's just my opinion, Ken, so don't take it as scripture or anything like that. But I really felt, McVay would have been a little bit younger coach at that point, younger overall too, would have said, hey, my schemes are great here. You know what's messing this up It's not my lack of knowledge or my ability to, help the players perform better. It's got to be the quarterback. And I really think it comes down to that. But you may find something different, but that's my opinion. I think if McVay could do it all over now, and in hindsight, maybe Goff wouldn't have been traded, and maybe the trade wouldn't have happened. Maybe he would have figured out, hey, I need to make some more adjustments here and there, augment my systems to fit the personnel and the quarterback better versus they all have to fit me. Who knows if I'm right, though. Don, the offseason will be even better. Detroit is a free agent destination. Yeah, I would agree. I think we've established ourselves here. Big M, congratulations to all my fellow Lions fans. Long time coming. They did it. They did. Pierce at Don took it right out of my mouth. If we get to the NFC title game, people will flock here. Correct. Southwest, I can't read McVay's mind, but he said nice things after a very tough loss in his press conference about Goff, the Lions, and the city of Detroit. I thought that was pretty classy of what he said. Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm going with Southwest, that I think if he understands now, he could have won it all with Goff. He could, Goff, like I said, whatever he was at that point of the trade, 23, 24, something like that, incredibly young quarterback who had performed at high levels, but yes, he'd also been exposed a little bit. So looking at where Goff is now, looking where Stafford is now, I do think they are very similar. I think Stafford has some different physical talents. Goff has some, different mental talents, or what do you want to say? But I do believe, to your point, McVay understands maybe he overreacted a little bit. But hey, good for us, man. Don, what do you got? P, yes, sir. Okay. Pierce, if Goff gets us to the title game, when do we start talking extension? I got to believe as soon as the season's over, they're in talks for it. Patrick, I think the rejection of Stafford by the Lions fan hurt him more than Stafford wanted to admit. I would concur with that. Again, he abandoned us. We didn't abandon him. Yeah, he wanted out of here. And I'll say this in his defense. He'd been through 4 regime changes and, front office clearings, all that stuff. If you're him at that point in his career, 30 plus years old, you got to be saying, hey, I've seen this before. I don't have faith that's going to all of a sudden right itself now. He's probably also looking over now and going, dang, if I would just have stayed, look where we would be. And someone like him who's grinded through 12 years trying to get Detroit to where it was, it's got to hurt a little bit looking over there. Not only did you lose a playoff game to the team that you left or abandoned, as you put, but they also beat me, and I still haven't won a game involving the Detroit Lions, in a playoff game involving the Detroit Lions. All right, Trumps, to be the man, you've got to beat the man. Woo! And you know what? Stafford, yeah, he did not win it, but Goff did. Right now, Goff is the man. Brent, agreed, folks. Think how many free agents will look to Detroit as a place to go and win. 100%. And win. I'm glad you put that all caps. Southwest, I'm going to cut Stafford some slack in the way he answered the question about being happy for the city of Detroit. It was a tough loss. He got beat by pretty good in that game. He did get beat up. Science, what do you got? Who the blank are these weirdos who say they are Americans, but also what? Yeah, we're not a political show. You're on the wrong channel, buddy. We're a Detroit Lions channel. Don't Stafford pull Detroit last year? Didn't Stafford pull a Detroit last year, 10-7? I don't remember, to be fair, their record last year, so I'd have to check on it. Patrick, Brad Holmes is a steady eye missile man. He knows talent. He does, and he does a great job with it. Yo, Joseph, Adrian, I did it 100%, man. That good reference there, man. Southwest, what's the Lions' accomplishment this year was incredible. The real test is staying on top. They have a murderer's row scheduled next year. They do, and you know what? That's part of the price of victory. Is that, you know what? You're going to face the best. All right, Seafood, what do you got? The Lion players chanted Goff's name in the locker room after the game too. Yeah, nobody's oblivious to it. I don't think the fans knew it. The players knew it. Everybody understood this dude got dumped. He got kicked to the curb. He got hit in the back with a steel chair, whatever you want to say. He got kicked out, and you know what? Good for him, man. Today, I'm going to say this. After the game last night, everything in the world had to taste better to him, smell better, feel better. I can only imagine what it was like leaving Ford Field last night. That dude's pretty humble. He's pretty quiet. He doesn't say a ton, but you know what? Bravo to him. Bravo to Jared Goff. Matt Stafford, hey, you got your Super Bowl, kudos and everything, but I'm just going to say this. Today's got to be a great day to be Jared Goff. All right, Kevin, great win, Lions. Congrats. Yeah. Don, man, get McVay out of here. What was it supposed to say? Yeah, that's true. It's true. Blind Tom, how healthy is the team? Is James Houston ready to come on board? We're going to find out this week. I don't know of any new injuries, and I doubt if anybody's going to give out any information prior to, at best, tomorrow, more than likely Wednesday. All right, answer 14, the defense really pinched down in the red zone. They did. When our DBs don't have to worry about over the top, they play sticky. They did. And, like you're saying, in the red zone, they won the game for us, or helped us win the game, we should say. The touchdown to Atwell was an absolutely perfect throw. It really wasn't that poor a pass coverage by Lions. No, it wasn't, and you are correct. Pierce, Southwest Vildor, but bit hard on the pick, but the throw was impressive. It was. Chad, I'm 52 and never seen our Lions in a Super Bowl. This year I will. I think you got a strong possibility of that, my friend. In fact, I picked it to happen about a week ago. All right, Pierce Marshall, I think it's so because be 4 years since I had 1 year left on his deal. Yeah, 100%. Southwest Pierce, well, I looked like it to me that Atwell was running a crossing pattern. Vildor was pretty dang close to him. But again, it was a perfect throw by Stafford. It was. I mean, he jumped on it. He thought he had a chance in it. Didn't get it. Let's see. Pierce, Southwest. Oh, for sure. Was totally agree. All right, Pierce. But one I saw Vildor was trying to force a turnover. He was. He went for the pick. Hatman in Goff, we trust 100%. Commissioner Breeze, what do you got? Lions about to go on a run. I concur. Uncle Buzz, I do not recall Stafford ever having a stellar O-line. You know what? You make what you make what you can out of what you got. I remember he had some pretty decent players. I don't know if he had the same caliber, but you know what? He also had some other things going for you, like a Megatron, Reggie Bush, etc. He had some other pieces. End of the day, you got to make with what you got. All right, Southwest, I think Vildor was trying to keep up with him. Atwell is fast, and it was a crossing pattern. It's typically tough to cover. It was. Uncle Buzz, he had the exact line his last couple years. He had this exact line, yeah, pretty close to it. Other than Penasul, yeah, he's played with the vast majority of these dudes. Correct. Don Burst, so now the word is Kirby Joseph is dirty. Man, I'm not saying he's dirty. You know what? NFL doesn't want people to tackle you low. You probably got to make some changes. You can't tackle them, in the neck higher. You can't tackle them here or there. You only give defenders so many places to hit. Pierce, people fail to remember when Tricia drafted this line. They did draft the vast majority of it. You are correct, Pierce. Justin, just a few more wins. Detroit, we are so close. Correct. Thomas, question. With our potential opponent playing this evening, how much of an advantage is this for us having an extra day of rest and recovery? I think it's massive. If you ask me, it means one less day that the other team, whoever we're going to face. So today's a rest day for us. They've got to play today. Tomorrow's typically just film study review for teams coming and meeting with your positional coaches, etc. So again, Lions are going to have more or less a second day of rest. Tampa Bay or Philly, if it's Philly, they're flying back home. They'll probably leave right after the game. But even so, Tuesday's now pretty disrupted. Wednesday's impacted to a degree. As far as your preparation and such, everything gets compressed. So I think, is it a massive advantage? No. Is it a 5 to 8% advantage? Sure, I'd go with that. Pierce, outside of Sewell. Yes, correct. Don, spell check, forgive me. Yeah, no worries, man. Mike, 24-23, that's tight. All right, it is tight. Pierce, I want Philly. All right. Where was Iffy? He was playing, Shannon. He was playing. All right, Hatman, I'm 62 years old and just want one Super Bowl before I die. I think you're going to have a chance to get you into that this year as far as the Super Bowl. Pierce, people in attendance, please boo Patricia relentlessly. I don't think you'll have to ask. I think it will happen. All right, Southwest, I hope they can figure out a way to use Iffy more on the blitz. How often did he blitz last night? I know of a handful of times he went in, but give the Rams some credit. They did block it out. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Just wanted to do a quick breakdown of revisiting that trade. If you got any thoughts on it, go ahead and leave it in the comments section. If there's some breaking news later today, I'll get it out to you. Otherwise, I'll see you guys all in the next Lions Talk Live. Take care, everybody.